You guys have no idea how excited I am to have this. This is a cimbasso, and it's so big I can barely fit it in the frame. And when I say it's big, I mean it's big. The camera really can't capture how absolutely massive these things are. I had never seen one in person until yesterday when I got this, and I didn't realize how huge it was. This is how big the bell section is. The body itself is as tall as my recording bell tuba. When I'm standing up straight, it goes to my torso, and I'm 5'10". I think the biggest thing that makes it seem so big is that it's tall and it goes back super far, so it takes up a lot of space. Obviously there are bigger and taller instruments than this. I mean, I'm pretty sure bassoon is taller than this, and contrabass clarinet is definitely taller. Tubas and contrabassoons have fatter bodies, and double basses are just massive, but at least they're compact. This is not compact. I've already bumped that tuba twice just because I can't see how far back this goes. But anyway, this is a cimbasso, and it's one of the coolest brass instruments. But before I get into this, I do have to mention I had to sell my Helicon to be able to afford this. That's why you haven't seen it in videos for a while. That E-flat Helicon was amazing, and I'm really gonna miss it. But it was from 1880, it's 150 years old, and it really shouldn't be sitting in the room of a college student. If you want to say your goodbyes to that Helicon in the comments, go ahead. I mentioned cimbasso very briefly at the end of my All Tubas Explained video, which you should go watch if you haven't seen, but I did a really bad job and I was pretty vague. I didn't make it clear in that video, but cimbasso is not a tuba. It's not any sort of tuba. It's a valved contrabass trombone. Although I am a little confused because F and E-flat tubas are considered bass tubas, so is this E-flat cimbasso considered a bass trombone, not a contrabass? I don't know. Giuseppe Verdi was an Italian opera composer, and he did not like the sound of the tuba at all. He thought it didn't blend well with the rest of the orchestra and the rest of the low brass. So he commissioned someone to make a type of trombone that would meet his tonal needs, but also something that tuba players could pretty easily switch over to. It wasn't till around the 1880s when this more modern design started coming to. Now the cimbasso really did catch on, mostly in Italian opera, but it has moved to other genres and other orchestras. Hans Zimmer is a little bit fond of these. If you ever watched Inception, you've definitely heard one. Only a few companies now really make cimbasso, and the ones you'll find the most are just stencils made in China with their brand slapped on it. This horn is actually the same one you'll get if you order from Schiller or Dylan. I just bought it straight from the source in China, so it was a lot cheaper and it doesn't have their logo. Wessex Tubas also does sell them, and they do come from China, but at least Wessex has a little more rigorous quality control. Buying from a factory in China is a little risky because there's not much quality control, so you could be sent a defective instrument. I seem to be lucky, there aren't any major problems, and it does play pretty well, but I've only had it for less than a day, so I haven't really explored it to its full extent. Most commonly you'll find cimbassi in the key of F, but they do have them in all four standard keys, which are of course F, E-flat, double C, and double B-flat. This one is in the key of E-flat because I already know how to play E-flat tuba, and since the fingers directly translate, I didn't want to have to learn a new key. Now most modern cimbassi do take a standard tuba mouthpiece shank. It means I can take any of my tuba mouthpieces and just stick them on and it will play. But if you want the best sound of it, it's probably better to get a cimbasso specific mouthpiece. This is the Shallow Burger cimbasso mouthpiece from Joe Selman's Burger, and I love it. I've been using this on my E-flat tuba and it's been sounding amazing, but I couldn't tell you guys that it was actually a cimbasso mouthpiece because I didn't want to spoil the surprise of this coming. Now even though the fingerings and mouthpiece shank do translate directly from tuba, I'm finding if you play it just like a tuba, it sounds pretty weird. I've been a tuba player for a long time, but I've never played trombone once, so trying to figure this new sound out is pretty weird. And also having the bell like a foot in front of me is so weird. It sounds like the sound is distant. I'm used to having the tuba right above my head. Even with the recording bell tuba projecting forward, it's still really near me. I really can't explain how it's different from a tuba, it just is. Something about the response and the way the air goes is just different. It's also so much easier to blast. I realize now why trombones can do it so easily. Now, I've wanted a cimbasso for a long time, but I've always held myself back because I didn't have a real reason to get one. But I ended up getting a full music scholarship, and now I'm going to college, and I really want to be in the jazz band, but it's really hard to be a tuba in there because it doesn't always match with the trombone sound. So with this, I'm hoping to audition as a bass trombone. Now, I know it's unusual. I mean, most instances of cimbasso are in operas and like Star Wars music, not really jazz. But if you know my channel at all, you'll know I'm trying to bring other instruments into jazz. I mean, I'm the guy who's been playing jazz songs on Ophiclyde, so why not bring cimbasso? Now, I'm really not the most qualified person to go in-depth on this instrument. I've only had it for less than a day. I do recommend Trent Hamilton's 2-part series on the cimbasso. However, if you do have any questions about this instrument, let me know in the comments, because if there are enough questions, I'll make a whole other video answering all those questions about this instrument. Something I haven't mentioned yet, because it's hard to see in frame, is that this has 5 valves, as well as a trigger up top. Now, most tubas you'll find have 3 or 4 valves, but 5 and 6 valve tubas aren't uncommon. The short explanation is that when a valve is pressed down, it extends the tubing a bit by a half step, a whole step, a third, whatever. So having more gives you more combinations to try and also lets you go lower. I'll give the example of double B flat tuba because it's the one I've played the longest. Now, having 3 valves gives you 7 valve combinations, which is all you need to play every chromatic note, and it's why trumpets work with just 3 valves. But playing a B flat 3 valve tuba, you get stuck down at E1 and can't play any lower. The 4th valve, while it's also a replacement for 1 and 3, lets you play lower than E1. Having a 5th and 6th valve essentially do the same thing, letting you play lower and letting your lower notes be more in tune, which is really essential when you're playing an E flat and F tuba, but playing contrabass music. Now, I am going to be honest, I've never even touched a tuba with more than 4 valves. So having a 5th valve, especially on my thumb, is really weird for me. At this point, I'm really not sure what to do with this 5th valve on my thumb. It seems to be the same length as the 1st valve. When I was tuning it up yesterday, I did notice that some of the notes played with the 1st valve are a little bit out of tune more than the others, so I guess I could play those with this one and just extend the tubing a little more on the trigger. It's really something I'm just gonna have to explore and figure out for myself, but it should be pretty useful. And theoretically, it will let me play lower the same way the 4th valve lets you play lower, but I'm really not sure how to utilize it. The other cool function on this is that it has a thumb trigger for your left hand up at the top. Now, this isn't another valve, it's called a slide kicker. You'll notice the 2nd valve right here moves when I press that trigger. This is another thing I've never had before on a tuba, and it's probably not something I'm going to use that much. Basically, if you're playing 2nd valve and your note is very slightly sharp, you can press this trigger and it'll push it out to play a little bit flatter. The nice thing is, if you're going to use this a lot, you don't have to keep going back and forth manually pushing it. You just have to press this little trigger and it'll go back and forth by itself. I only really got to mess around with it for an hour yesterday, so I didn't get much, but it seems to play pretty well. Even with all the slides pulled out properly, there are still a few notes that are out of tune, but I'm assuming that's more of a me problem than the instrument. The way it sits on the ground is the same way bass clarinets, cellos, and basses do. It's just got a little foot on a rod. Comes out the back and you can just adjust it. And that adjustable foot is really necessary because this is not an instrument that's easy to pick up and play. I didn't believe people when they said this is a sit-down instrument because I play tuba standing up all the time. It's more comfortable sometimes, but this is not easy. Even though I'm pretty sure it is slightly lighter than a normal tuba, it's really top heavy, super easy to topple over. Now, the way you hold it, there's a bar right here that you can grab and a bar right here that you can grab, or a ring for your thumb and your valves. But the problem is you're holding on to a slippery brass rod, so you're gonna slide up really quickly and then your fingers get stuck right here and it hurts like crazy. See, I'm already slipping. So it really does not work to play well. Maybe if I find some kind of grippy tape or find a way to put a tuba strap around this, I can walk around with it, but this is most definitely a sit-down instrument. So those are my first impressions for this cimbasso. I'm really excited to explore the instrument and learn how to play well. You'll be seeing it a lot in videos to come. If you're really desperate for a cimbasso, I bought this from Alibaba from Freighter Musical Instruments. It took like 2.5 months to get here, and it is a bit of a gamble, but if you really need one, that's the place to go. You will still have to pay shipping and import tax, and if you're in the US like me, that import tax is crazy high, so you will have to deal with that. But anyway, here's a lovely serenade to end the video on.